I'm doing only 25 groups.
Okay.
I think I have enough content. I'll see.
Okay.
Will it mess up the schedule for tomorrow?
You can cover it up. We'll see.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Can you quickly look?
Saturday.
I saw a message yesterday and I thought it was on. Okay, yeah, I can cover both, Prabhu. No problem. The second one is small. The first one, 26 is small. Okay, today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse number 25. Tatayam chavataraste bhuva bhara jiharshaya swanam chananya bhavanam anudharayanaya cha sakrat. Tatayanam chavacharaste bhuva bhara jiharshaya swanam chananya bhavanam anudhyanaya cha sakrat. Tata, thus, yayam, this, cha, and avatara, incarnation, te, your, bhuva, of this material world, bhara, burden, jihirshaya, for removing, swanam, of the friends, cha ananya bhavanam, and of the exclusive devotees, anudhyanaya, for remembering repeatedly, cha, and asakrit, fully satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus you descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the material of the world and to benefit your friends, especially those who are exclusively devotees and constantly wrapped in meditating upon you. Purport. It appears that the Lord is partial to his devotees. Everyone is related with the Lord. He is equal to everyone, yet he is more inclined to his own men and devotees. The Lord is everyone's father. No one can be his father, yet no one can be his son. His devotees are his kinsmen, and his devotees are his relations. This is the transcendental pastime. It has nothing to do with the mundane ideas of relations, fatherhood, or anything like that. As mentioned above, the Lord is above the modes of material nature, and thus there is nothing mundane about his kinsmen and relations in devotional service. We'll also do the next verse just to keep the schedule in place. Kim idam switkuto vidi deva devana vedyamaham sarvato mukham ayati tejah paramadharuram. O Lord of Lords, how is that this dangerous effulgence is spreading around all the world? Where does it come from? I do not understand it. Purport. Anything that is presented before the personality of Godhead should be so done after due presentation of respectful prayers. That is the standard procedure. And Sri Arjuna, although an intimate friend of the Lord, is observing this method of general information. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschakta Deshatarane Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stamapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shubhadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tvam Sujivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakamitam Sri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Taptanachana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari. Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So before I speak a few words on this transcendental topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, I'd like to seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. I'm neither qualified nor eligible to speak, but as a service, I'll try to repeat whatever I heard and share a few realizations that came about as I went through this and over the last couple of weeks. So I'll start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we saw early on what has happened, right? We saw in the beginning how Vyasadeva, was instructed by Narad Muni to compile Srimad Bhagavatam. And now the transcendental, and then we also saw, Narad Muni shared his life story. And eventually we saw how Vyasadeva got the mercy of Narada Muni, and then he started to meditate in his ashram, and then he got the audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now he's getting ready to, he's going into the actual story. After that, we also saw how Bhagavatam was narrated to, or given to Shukadeva Goswami. Now we are slowly getting into the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is where the main characters of the Srimad Bhagavatam are going to come together, meaning Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So this is another step in which these two great personalities are going to be coming together very soon. And now the background of this is being shared here, meaning background to how the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, and then eventually the life of Parikshit Maharaj, and how he comes about to meet Sukadeva Goswami, and how this transcendental topic of Srimad Bhagavatam is coming to play. Now, some of the important past, important events that lead up to the birth of Parikshit Maharaj are being discussed. So we saw how the Kurukshetra war has been completed, and then how Duryodhana was defeated, and then Ashwadhama, who was a loyal servant to Duryodhana, he cannot give up the fact that his master was defeated, and then he's still fighting. While Duryodhana accepted defeat, he still wants to go ahead and fight. He's unable to accept defeat, and that is the nature of false ego. So in that lines, now he attacks the sons of Draupadi, and then after the attack of the sons of Draupadi, now the subsequent incident is happening, right? So when Arjuna went, Arjuna is going to basically arrest Ashwadhama because of his heinous act. And then all of a sudden, Arjuna sees this great effulgence of light coming as if it is going to devour the whole world. And then Arjuna he's trying to compose himself, he's trying to understand what is happening. And then he surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's very nice. And Prabhuji, thank you for pointing out. So in the verse number 26, I'll start from 26 and go back to 25 because I really like the purport of Srila Prabhupada. So before Arjuna takes the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, here, Srila Prabhupada is saying there is an etiquette when you reach out to somebody or asking for help, or somebody whoever is senior to us. There is an etiquette to follow. He says in the purport, anything that is presented before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or we can also say to the representatives of the Personality of Godhead, it should be done after due presentation of respectful prayers. That is the standard procedure. And Sri Arjuna, although he's an intimate friend of the Lord, he's observing the method of general information. So the etiquette is whenever we reach out for help to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then, or even to our seniors, right? There's different levels of seniors. When I say levels, is anybody who's better than us in any aspect. It could be material, or it could be spiritual, or any aspect. When somebody is senior, that means if we are seeking their help, there is a certain etiquette that we need to follow. And here we can see, even though Arjuna is the Supreme Lord's friend, he's following this etiquette. And that is what we saw in the last several verses. Arjuna very nicely composed different prayers. And then he glorifies the different aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead before he puts forth his request onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of trying to understand what is happening around him. He's in a confused state. So, and then we saw in these prayers how Arjuna glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It starts from actually verse number 22, and then it goes all the way through verse number 26, right? Today we're ending there. So in verse number 22, what Arjuna covered was that Krishna, he's glorifying Krishna, saying that you are the ultimate shelter, meaning you are the shelter for everyone in this material world. He also specifically says you are the shelter of the devotees. You bestow fearlessness in devotees. Bhaktyanam abhayankaraya. Bhaktyanam meaning the devotees, abhayankaraya meaning the opposite of bhaya. You are the one who's giving fearlessness to all the devotees. And then next, he also describes the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How the Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond this material nature. He gives there are many Sanskrit verses. He says you are Adi Purusha, meaning you're the original person. Then he says Ishvara, you're the controller. Everything is controlled by you. And then he says you're transcendental to this material world. Even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down to this material world, he's transcendental to it. And then he also says he is the one who casts away the Maya. When in this material world, everybody is covered by illusion. And he says, you are the one who can uncover or remove this Maya. And then in verse number 24, he glorifies the Supreme Lord by saying how he's very merciful unto the devotees of the Lord, where he removes this covering of Maya, which is very difficult to be done. So one thing I was really appreciating here is, see, this incident is happening after Kurukshetra, right? After the battle of Kurukshetra. That means by this time, Bhagavad Gita was already spoken to Arjuna. And you will see that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling about himself. When Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, Sishyasteham Swadhyam Prapannam, and the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, there Krishna was establishing his identity. He says, hey Arjuna, you're so foolish. You think I'm equal to you, but I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he establishes his identity. He gives him the Sambandha Gyan, that who the Supreme Person, who he is, and who actually Arjuna is. He's an individual soul like us. But he gives all the same information that Arjuna is just now narrating. He says, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am transcendental to this material world. Maya does not affect me. Maya affects the individual souls. And he says, if you surrender unto me, I will remove this Maya. And then he says, I am the shelter of all living entities. He says, I give, Sarvadharman Parityajya, I am the shelter for you. And now Arjuna is repeating the same words back to Krishna and glorifying him. So, we cannot manufacture anything. Krishna is the ultimate. Now, the only way we can glorify Krishna is by just narrating his qualities. That's very interesting to note here, how he's glorifying what exactly Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. Now, to go back to verse number 25, there are two main aspects that are being covered in this verse number 25. The first aspect is, it says, Bhuva Bharaya Jihirshaya. So that is the second line. One second, I need to go to the previous page. So he says, Bhuva Bhara Jihirshaya. Why, Arjuna is saying, Krishna, you descend to this material world for two purposes. One is Bhuva Bhara Jihirshaya, which is to remove the burden of this material world. To remove the burden on the, if somebody is causing burden to this, to this world, Krishna is here to come and correct that. And the second one is to benefit your friends. Bhaktyanam, it says, Swanam Chananya Bhavanam. Where he says is, one second. Ananya Bhavanam. So to the dedicated devotees who are Ananya Bhavanam, and you descend to give your shelter to them, right? So I want to touch on these two aspects. What does it mean when somebody says one is burden to the material world? So if Krishna is coming down to this material world to correct it, and exactly, again, going back to my earlier point, how Arjuna is repeating exactly what was told by Krishna himself. Krishna says, "Yadha yadha hi dharmasya glanir bhavati triparadam." He says, whenever there is decline of religion, whenever the burden on this material world is increased, I come down, I descend, and then I correct it, right? Now, similarly, Arjuna is repeating the same thing. Now, what does it mean? If Krishna is coming from the spiritual world down here to correct it, then it is very important for us to understand what is the meaning of being a burden to this material world. At least as devotees, we should not become burden. While at a larger thing, one may say, all the when Kurukshetra battle happened, all the kings were they became irreligious, and there was a lot of things happening, and that's why Krishna came down to correct things. But as individual devotees, we should also be very cautious. Am I becoming a burden to this material world? What does it mean? What does it mean to be a burden to this material world? I came across a very, very nice lecture by Srila Prabhupada. I was reading earlier, and Srila Prabhupada very nicely explains that. This lecture is in the context of when the Yadus fought between themselves and they killed each other. And Srila Prabhupada, shares, some very insightful things in there. And then you'll notice that, something that really struck me is, even if you are a close relative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'll repeat again, even if you're close relative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you become to this burden to this material world, Krishna will annihilate you. So it is important, sometimes we may think, yeah, I'm a devotee of the Lord, whatever I'm doing is right, or whatever I feel is right. But actually, if we become a burden to this material world, Krishna is going to correct us. So it's important for us to understand what does it mean to be a burden to this material world, and also not be that burden. So in that context, Srila Prabhupada quotes another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is from the 13th chapter, of the first canto itself. He says, it's very nice if we can analyze that, right? Asahastani sahasthanam. So I'll read each line separately. Ahastani sahasthanam. What we say is, in this material world, one living entity is food for another living entity, and then and the word says, sahastani sahasthanam. The animals or the living beings that do not have hands, or that do not have hands, are prey to the animals or to the living entities that have hands. So we can easily see, I think this is summer. If you're chanting sitting outside your house and whatnot, you will see a lot of robins flying around, and you will notice, all the robins are going in, poking in the ground, pulling a worm out and eating it. So you can see how the robin is powerful. It's very powerful because, it can fly, it can walk and do. A worm is very weak. The moment a worm comes out of the grass and it is there, even if it sees the robin, even if it sees danger right in front of him, he cannot escape. Because asahastani, he doesn't have the faculty or that power where he can escape from that danger. So the robin is, it immediately flies. The moment it sees the prey, it goes there, it eats it. Now the next line is apadani chatushpadam. The ones that do not have limbs, or who are not limbed, is a prey to the ones that has limbs. So we can see, right, even if something has limbs, if somebody has powerful limbs, they become, the weaker limbs become prey to it. A simple example is a deer and a tiger. A deer can, has limbs and everything, but a tiger is it has more powerful limbs. So immediately it rushes and captures the prey. The moment it's hungry, it'll find a deer and it'll kill it. Then Palguni Tatra Mahatana. So similarly, what it says is anybody who's more powerful can has the faculty to attack the weak. Jivo Jivasya Jivana. And in this material world, the rule of thumb is one living entity is food for another living entity. It sounds scary, right? Meaning that means I am in danger every moment. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example of fish in the ocean. A small fish becomes a prey to a bigger fish. One may think and go to the ocean, wow, how calm this ocean is. Or if you look at a lake, you feel that how calm this lake is. But under the lake, there's a lot of fear and turbulence that is happening. All the living entities under the lake, in the lake, are every moment under the water, every moment in fear. A small fish is afraid of a bigger fish that is coming. So similarly, and that is true even in even above the water. There is danger every moment. If you carefully watch every living entity, you will notice that it is in fear. Every moment it is in fear. Why will I get attacked? I maybe get attacked. Do you think humans are exception to this? Absolutely not. It is just that, if you put in the context of human society, what it is, if you look at from a purely animal perspective, right? You can say that humans are, and I'll try to say it rightly, but don't look at it from a scripture perspective. But what I try to say is, you can say all the humans got together and came to an agreement and said, we should not live in danger every moment. So let us put some rules around in the society. We put rules that if one person attacks another person, a policeman can come and arrest that person, or you can file a case in the court. So it is just that, we are always in danger, just like every animal. It is just that as a society, we have come into terms and agreements that we will not fight with each other. Otherwise, essentially, we are just animals. Every moment we would be in danger. Imagine yourself, you going and walking into a jungle. The reason you feel unsafe in a jungle is because you know that you have gone into a territory where you do not have an agreement with the animals there. It's just that in the human society, we just agree to each other saying that we'll follow the rules of society. And as collective society, if somebody breaks these rules, we will arrest them, we'll put them in jail. That is the only difference between us and animals. Otherwise, even us, are in danger every moment. And similarly, like, how do we get food? How do we get shelter? We just made up rules. And as a collective society, we are trying to create a safe environment. But in reality, we are not actually. In this world is full of danger. Now, then Srila Prabhupada goes on to say, now, how can one be different? Earlier I talked about burden to this material world, right? Burden to this world. How can one be different than being an animal? While, we have these rules and regulations in society and we feel that we are a civilized person, or, it's not really, there's no danger or anything. Srila Prabhupada says is the same principle is there, right? The weak becomes prey for the powerful, or the powerful attacks the weak. If somebody wants to distinguish themselves from being an animal or a civilized animal, is just because you're powerful doesn't mean you have the opportunity to attack another living entity. When you look at it from a spiritual perspective, the living entity should be respectful about the other living entity's position. One should understand that we are not the spirit body, but we are the spirit soul, meaning I am not the body, I am not the spirit soul. Similarly, the other living entity is not the body, it's the spirit soul. And we all have a relationship in connection to Krishna. The moment we go down the path of I am powerful and I can exploit another living entity, that is when we are creating burden to this material world. And it can happen very subtly. One may think, I'm not a burden because I am I'm not attacking my neighbor, I'm not doing this. But if you subtly observe things, we have a tendency to exploit other people. We have a tendency to exploit uh, situations. We have a tendency to, uh, overpower other people. Maybe in a subtle way, maybe I just have a little power that, you know, like a small child, like I may not have power enough, enough to maybe, I would not say hit the person, like cause trouble to my neighbor, but given the chance, will I be doing it, right? That's why we see, how we see Hiranyakashipu manifest, right? Initially, Hiranyakashipu feels very weak. The moment he comes to know how his brother was killed by Varaha, he understands that his weakness is that he can never win, he can never overpower Vishnu. Then what he does, he goes on to gain more power. He goes on with the reason to exploit, right? And the moment he gets power, he begins to exploit all living entities in this material world. So it is important to see what is our nature. We may think, I'm not a burden to this society, but what if I was given all the power? Do you think the nature or the quality in me will begin to exploit everybody in this material world? And if we have that quality, that means we are a burden to the society. It's just that we don't have the faculty to do it now. Given, next birth, if you become a demigod, you may exploit it. I'm talking about myself, right? Given power, if somebody gave me power, I will, I may think I'm such a nice person, but once I get power, maybe I will start exploiting everything. So that is, we need to understand, until and unless we understand or go to the deep roots that I am not the body and I'm the spirit soul, and my eternal relationship is a servitude to Krishna, until we 100% realize that, we will continue to be a burden in the society. And Krishna will come and correct us. I will have to go a little bit over time today, sorry. The second aspect is Krishna, right? The second aspect is Krishna comes down to, but he's partial to his devotees. This is a question that's always, I won't say debated, that every time clarification comes, Krishna says, I am equal to him, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. He says, I'm equal to everyone, but my devotees are more dear to me. What does that mean? Right? And this is a question, I think even Prahlad Maharaj, even Parikshit Maharaj asks to Sukadeva Goswami. He says, if Krishna is equal to everyone, why do we see that Krishna is impartial to the demons? And that's when the Prahlad Maharaj in the pastime is narrated. Now, while Krishna comes down to this material world to relieve the burden and correct everyone, like, correct the situation of this world, what does it mean Krishna is partial to his devotees? Or differently asked, how can I become a friend of Krishna so that he can be partial to me? The key difference I want to say here is, I was trying to look for a right example, but yeah, in my I'll give my own, and I'll say my own example or my own situation, and hopefully you can relate to it, right? So there are many kids that come to our house and play in the evenings. They come and hang out, right? They come, they like to have fun. So, I'm open, and kids come to my house. So yeah, as many kids come to our house, right? I'm equal to everyone. I want everybody to have the fun. I want everybody to be nice and good and, have a good time, right? So in that way, I'm equal to everyone, right? Now, if some kid is doing something wrong, right? Like, it may not be a major mistake, a small mistake, right? Or they're doing something. If I do not have that connection, if I do not have that, or if the kid does not have that connection to me, I might correct him or I might not correct him. But if the kid has a connection to me, meaning if the kid, if I know that if I correct that particular kid, he will not feel bad, he will not feel bad that I corrected him, but he will understand that, yes, this is for my good. And that's why, Mohan Lila Prabhu is saying this to me. Then I will correct that child. And that one we can see in everybody's life, right? For example, if your neighbor's kid is doing something crazy, you would not say anything, right? You would just be quiet. It's not my problem. It is my neighbor's problem. But if your child did the same thing, you would correct your child. Similarly, when Krishna is saying, I am partial to my devotees, and this is my realization, Krishna is equal to everyone. If there is a disturbance in this material world, he will come and correct it. He's, irrespective if it's my neighbor's child or it's me, he will come and correct the situation. But if you individually want, earlier I talked about, right, in the heart, if you want, in your heart, if you want to change your nature, and if you want to establish that connection with Krishna will individually correct you. Meaning Krishna will, as a friend, earlier I gave this example, right? As a parent is going to correct their child, but not a neighbor's child, because the child understands that, my parent is correcting me because it's for my good. Krishna will take that one extra step to correct you, to bring to the eternal position and take you home back to Godhead. That is the main difference here, and we see in Yatha Yatha Dharmasya also. When Krishna comes down, he is making sure that dharma is established in this whole world. That means every living entity can survive in this material world by dharmic principles. But he also comes and enacts his pastimes so that the devotees, whoever wants to be attracted to Krishna, the devotees of Krishna, are attracted by the transcendental pastimes. They go through the process of devotional service. They establish their love to Krishna, and they can go back to Godhead. So in my small realization, I feel that is the key difference. Are we willing to be corrected by Krishna? Meaning, when I go to Krishna and I pray to him, and I'm on that platform, Krishna, I want this, I want that, I want this, or Krishna, please help me correct myself. Only you can point out the faults in me and help me overcome all the anarthas that I have, which is my prayer. If you're in the first category, it's not wrong to be in the first category. If you're in the first category, then he will establish dharma for you. But if you're in the second category, he will establish for us that opportunity to purify ourselves and go back to God. So this is what I would like to add today. Any questions, comments? I know we are over time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Jyotirmaya Dasi. Thank you for a very wonderful class, Prabhu. And I was liking a couple of points. One about the etiquette, what we should follow with our seniors. That's a very good reminder for me, because I get carried away. The devotees are so merciful, they come and, talk to us, try to help us. Sometimes I get carried away, but it was very nice emphasizing the point that how we should, approach them with a proper etiquette. That's a very nice point. And another one, even as a devotee, we think like, we are devotee of Krishna. In what way am I going to be burden in this earth? Still, Krishna is going to protect me. But yeah, Krishna is going to protect us. Krishna is protecting us. But that's a nice point. Even as a devotee, we have to be very careful. Even the subtle way, that point was a very catching point for me. So thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I was liking these 2 points very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I also agree with Jyotirmaya Mataji that I really like that point, how we are, we think that because we have become devotees, we're on this path, but we could still be a burden to a society in different ways. And the second one, I really like this example you gave of I always have this difficulty understanding how Krishna is partial to his devotees. It's like I get it, but I don't get it kind of concept. So this example you gave, how kids come to your house and you know all of them and you're equal to all of them, yet the kids who have more relationship with you, you feel more inclined to correct them, help them. So that point, I really, it kind of made sense when you put it in that perspective. So thank you, and really wonderful class, Prabhu. I also appreciated all the points you covered.
Yeah, speaking about the earlier point, I think what I was appreciating in Srila Prabhupada's lecture was what happens is when the Yadus, after Krishna leaves, the Yadus become very, very powerful because, you know, obviously they are descendants of Krishna, and then they forget, and then they start conquering the world. And then, you know, Srila Prabhupada states that as they started to conquering the whole world, Krishna, in order to establish Dharma again, he makes them fight amongst themselves, even though they're powerful. So we can see how, we can fall in that category. You know, we become powerful. You know, we have all this knowledge. We become detached. We become, the moment you become detached, you can become powerful on your own. Because when there's attachment, you are attached to something, and I don't know differentiate. In essence, right now, as devotees, sometimes we gain this power, and if we don't be careful, we can misuse that power and exploit people too, right? So, and then Krishna creates that. It was very interesting to read how even the descendants of Krishna can become adharmic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I please accept my humble obeisances. I have a question that Srila Prabhupada is saying that even though you are like Arjuna is a very intimate friend of Krishna, but he is asking a question after offering suitable prayers. And Krishna says and Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, oh, I have treated you like a common friend, like calling you, hey Krishna, hey Yadav. So, and in this time, we see that he is really offering those beautiful prayers before asking Krishna this question. And it is a very impending danger that is this Achyutama's weapon is coming at them. And so I'm surprised that that he maintains that that formality, even though he is most intimate friend of Krishna. How is it possible? That usually when you talk to your friend, you just talk.
Yes, Maji. I think that's what my 2 cents here is. That's why Srila Prabhupada is saying it's important to follow etiquette, right?
Yeah.
So, how do I put it? Etiquette is our guideline, right, to keep us safe in Krishna consciousness. Even in this material world, right? When you go to office, there's a certain etiquette that you need to follow. Now, does etiquette in itself create something, like create that environment for you? No, not really. But etiquette gives you the mood to do it. For example, right, if my office has a certain attire, right, that I should wear, just by following it doesn't mean it'll change my heart within, right, who I am. But the etiquette helps it, right? I don't know if I'm making sense here, and that is the reason I think when I was listening to the glorifications of Bhaktacharya Swami, he's one of the persons who established, early on in the movement, Vaishnava etiquette, how it is very important. And that's why etiquette, helps us follow guidelines, right? Even, for example, right, I saw, it's funny, right? It says, funny in the sense, like, in the etiquette, it says in the temple room, one should not fart in the temple room. It sounds like, oh, that's common sense, right? Why would somebody do it? But sometimes, like one should not sneeze and stuff like that, right? And there are certain things, sometimes what happens is in a rush, like you said, when Arjuna is in this situation, in this strong, intense situation, why is he having to do this? I would just naturally do it, right? But etiquette, when you follow etiquette, what happens is, even in intense situations, it'll keep you composed. That's what I could say.
Thank you, Prabhu. And also, when it helps our way of meeting with respect, everything, it sets a certain mood of respect and reverence to the seniors, everything. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mohan, Lila, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very good lessons today that we can take home from this class. You have very detailedly explained how, how to be respectful to seniors, and I think I need to learn the etiquette. Seriously, since I just started, and I have to really learn a lot of these rules and regulations more carefully, be more careful with seniors, and these are my lessons that I'm taking today. So thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. I think it's a subtle difference, right? I think what I want to say is, etiquette helps us follow guidelines. That doesn't mean it is there to suppress us, right? When we follow the etiquette, we should be, at the same time, we should be open enough to share our heart. Say, for example, right, if you feel that a senior person has done something that is bothering you, right? Now, I'll take the perfect example, right? The etiquette is, because they are senior, we are not supposed to correct them. But at the same time, if that keeps on bothering us, it affects us, right? So what you can do in that situation, I'm giving an example, but there's many situations. You can reach out to a person who is closer to you and express, hey, this is a problem that's bothering me, and they can potentially give us a different perspective to it, right? So etiquette doesn't mean we just have to be submissive. We should say yes to everything and whatnot. What I call it, in the modern day world, what we call, and especially it's becoming more and more popular in education systems now. When we were children, nobody taught us this, is this word called assertiveness. What it means, assertive, is it is being, how do I put it? You should be able to, if something happens, or if somebody is more senior to us, we don't go and fight with them, but at the same time, we try to find some form of resolution, right? Meaning, how can I understand what they did, or how can I get help, or seeking help, right? So what I'm trying to say is, sometimes we go to the other extreme when we say follow etiquette, meaning always go down our head and say yes to everything. That's not necessarily the case. The flip side of it is, you should be able to express your heart to someone. You should be able to express or understand what situation is going on, because if you keep on saying yes, while our heart is not accepting some things, what will happen is it'll just create a pressure in us, and it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time when that pressure cooker is going to explode. So it is much safer to say, again, right, going back etiquette, we should not correct somebody if they are senior to us, and especially if you're not in a position to correct them. But at the same time, there is nothing wrong in expressing what you feel about it. So doing it rightly, I would say assertively. It's hard to explain that word, assertiveness. But when you do it assertively, it's going to help your Krishna consciousness too. So I just want to be very careful with that word. Etiquette and suppression are two different things.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, I will look up assertiveness and try to understand more. Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mohan, Prabhu. Yeah, it was a wonderful class. So I was just thinking about, a few points are there. I know time is up. So one thing, the familiarity. I was thinking about when you said the etiquettes, right, especially with the seniors. I mean, the devotees are like very merciful, and but if we take that as a thing and then try to act in the same way that the other person is, especially with the spiritual master or senior devotees, right? I mean, we should not when we're getting that. I mean, in our moment, we have very access to everything, right? I mean, up to the spiritual master, even the Krishna in the deity form. But I mean, it's very easy to get the familiarity and then not. I mean, not follow the etiquettes. But when we follow the etiquettes, I mean, it's much easier to at least not to develop that familiarity. So
Yes.
I mean, that familiarity will be a more very, very dangerous thing to have, right? So I mean,
yes, yeah. Familiarity breeds contempt, right? Yes, Prabhuji. I think very great point. Yes, how etiquette can help you not become familiar with things, right?
And and a second point, I mean, even if devotees, right, it's like Krishna doesn't stop. I mean, he has to, I mean, establish because he's equal to everybody. So it doesn't matter who does the mistake, he has to correct it, right? So, I mean, to some extent, to whatever extent you want to do, I mean, including others. But the other point I was just thinking, Prabhu, you mentioned about, I mean, we as a human beings formed, I mean, came to an understanding that we will not hurt each other. There are some laws that we created it, but we see what happens when there is lawlessness, right? I mean, like for example, raids. So you know, I mean, it's like very, very scary. I mean, including every individual who goes out. It is. I mean, it's only it's a matter of not following or not keeping those agreements that we are in place, right? Still, people are fearful because there is a law in place. They know that.
Yes.
But then that is how, and it's so. I mean, we can relate it to like animals. So.
Yes, padam yat padam vipaditesham. Yes. Every moment it's danger.
Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Mohan, Lila Prabhu, thank you. I know it's time, spiritual world, there is no time. We can think about it. In spiritual discussion also no time, but I will have to ask a question for you. The burden, when you read the burden, the first thing it came to my mind about we are all talking about other families, other things, etc., etc. But even at home, wife is a burden for a husband and husband is a burden for a wife. Even in many devotees families, I've seen this. So it struck my point of, because I had I felt, even in my experiences, I had felt that in my own life. So as a devotee, how do we be cautious on that, Prabhu?
You're asking the wrong person. If you talk to Prem Kishore, she'll tell you what kind of a word. I mean, I think that's where etiquette can come into play, right, Prabhuji? If you set, I mean, not like an agreement again, like a society agreement, but if one draws line for themselves, this is a line that I will never cross. And if we are respectful, if we make sure that we don't cross that line, that's what is going to safeguard us, right? It becomes, as the relationships become closer and closer, we easily cross that line. So, I think, for example, I would not go and yell at my neighbors, right? Because we know the repercussions of this. Like Lingaraj Prabhu is saying, it's just because we are dependent on each other, we tend to cross that line very easily. So I heard a quote, I think, I don't know who told this. The greatest pain is caused by the most loved ones. Like strangers cannot cause us pain. The most of the pain is caused to us by the ones we love. That's because we again, like Lingaraj Prabhu was saying, we create, we take advantage of the closeness. We become familiar with the person. I would say the safeguard is, to draw that line for ourselves and say, I will never cross this line. And if I cross that line, I will apologize, right? I will say sorry. Because sometimes, modes of material nature can carry us away, but that doesn't mean we justify our actions by saying it's the modes of material nature. But what there's also prayaschitta, right? Or what is my prayaschitta for the actions that I've done? Do we say sorry? Do we rectify it and whatnot. Those are the two things I would say, Prabhuji. Draw a line for ourselves, and if we cross the line, how do I rectify it?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I
Yes,
add something?
Yes, Mataji.
I think I like the way Shatrugna Mataji and Vamsidhari Prabhu address each other in the groups. I mean, how they, I think the concept of looking at each other as soul and not this, person related to in this material world. That relationship really, like it really helps me understand, okay, this is how it should be. Even though we are a wife and husband, we still have to keep that, respect, because you are a soul, I am a soul, we both are children to Krishna, right? And that really surprises me. I mean, the way they do it is as if they are two different people, and then talking to each other as if like right, that space is there, that respect is there. I really appreciate their relationship in that way.
Yes, Mataji, yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, I think we are going over time. We'll end it here for today. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.